Hi friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel, Bookworm Couple.
Today we're going to be talking about a collection of novellas, Assassin's Blade, which is kind of the first book in the Throne of Glass series, prequel situation.
Prequel, yeah.
Robby read the first two books of the Throne of Glass series and
Yes.
then now has read the prequel, which is a collection of novellas called Assassin's Blade. People have very particular opinions about the order in which you read it. This is the order in which I read it. I found it to be impactful. I obviously can't go back in time and see if it would have been more impactful to have read it first, but I liked it this way. So that's what I recommended to Robby, and now we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
He's got some feelings.
I really do. I really do. I feel bad because this is going to be the second discussion in a row that's going to be
It's honest.
negative. But if I had read this book first, I would not have wanted to continue the series.
That's kind of how I felt when I read it, even though I read it third.
Yeah, I do want to start off by saying, whenever I read short stories or novellas or novelettes or whatever, it's always kind of an uphill battle. I don't love them. I read epic fantasy a lot of the time because I like long books.
Yeah.
And so I also think that, especially when an author is used to writing very long books, it's an entirely different skill set to write something much shorter. And I think that that was part of the reason I didn't love this as much. I don't think Sarah J. Maas did a great job, and that's not even really a knock against her. It's just more of like, it's an entirely different skill set, and I just think it felt like she hadn't really practiced it very much, or just maybe it wasn't exactly her strongest suit, and so it felt like a very big step back prose-wise, which made it just harder to read, especially because I was so excited after reading the second one, and I thought everything was such a big step up, and this felt like a huge jump backwards, and I'm hoping when I get back into the third one, it's more in line with the second book, because I thought that we were making really good progression. But anyway, I don't love novellas to begin with.
So you're already starting this at a lower level.
I went
it's not your
in
thing.
being like, impress me, and I was not impressed.
I do think it's a hard thing. I love, when you love a world, I always am craving more in it. And I've noticed that is kind of like a trend, and maybe this is like romantasy authors or just because I've noticed that in quite a few authors that I've read in recent history with like long series. It's almost, to me, I kind of look at it as like we get their notes. You know, like we get the like background notes, and it's not necessarily the most entertaining thing, but often it gives you a little bit of, you know, background or insight or emotional journey of the characters you wouldn't have before. But I agree with you. They're not my favorite.
Yeah, even in series, I have to be absolutely ravenous for a series to want to read novellas. And even in series that I dearly, dearly love, like Brandon Sanderson loves a good novella, I don't always love reading those. I feel very obligated to read them because there's always stuff that's important in there. And I'm assuming that is the case with this book. And or it better be, because otherwise I don't understand the reason.
See, and I feel like this one is hard to talk about because, at least if you haven't read the series, because I feel like I'm now looking at it. I remember reading it and not having a great time.
Yeah.
But I also did enjoy bits and pieces. Like I enjoyed certain characters, and which we can go into eventually. But I feel like now I have an unfair advantage of looking at it after having finished the entire series. And so I have a much more positive light on Assassin's Blade than I did when I read it, because I have the unfair payoff.
Well, I'm expecting that. I absolutely am. I look forward to finishing the entire series and going back and being able to reassess how I feel about not only this book, but all of them, but really especially this one, because I'm assuming every single character that the short stories, or excuse me, the novellas focused on in this book are going to come up. And if they don't, I will be very annoyed.
Well, do you want to talk about the characters?
I do in a second, but there's one other thing that's spoiler-free that I want to kind of bring up. Another thing that really bothered me about this, one of the main things, is the fact that it should have been a full book. It's a collection of novellas, but all of them take place over the course of, I believe, in world, 3 to 4 months, and they're in chronological order. It makes absolutely no sense to me that they were written as separate stories. It seems kind of odd. Also, to begin with, what they chose to write about is not what I'm interested in seeing about Selena. I don't really care about, you know, the stuff that they covered, which I'm not going to say because we're still in the spoiler-free part. I wanted to know about, like, how she actually became the, you know, best assassin, Adderley's assassin. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. But that's what I wanted to see. I didn't need to see more stories about how she's an assassin, but she's got a heart of gold. I don't care about that. We were already doing that work in the actual series. I have yet to see her actually be, like, that super cold-blooded assassin. I've seen her be very arrogant. I've seen her kill people in fits of rage and righteous anger. I've never seen her just be like a cruel assassin, which is what everyone builds her to be, and she builds herself to be, but we have never seen it. And I don't understand why these stories were written. This is like the least interesting part, in my opinion, of what happened to her. And I guess we should start going into spoilers and stuff. So, spoiler warning going forward. I'm going to be talking about some details of the novellas, as well as the characters in them. So if you haven't read this yet, highly recommend you go check it out before you watch the rest of the video. So I guess I figure we should just go in order, right? Like, we'll just go. So the first novella is The Assassin and the Pirate Lord, which is a dope name.
I got so excited when I read that title. Same.
And then I was
like, yes,
super
pirates,
disappointed.
go.
I do think this was possibly my least favorite of the bunch.
Sure.
I like Rolf. I think he's a cool character. I think the concept of the... Rolf is his name, right?
Yeah.
Yes. The concept of the tattoo that moves on his skin is incredible. I want to read a book about that.
Honestly,
that was great. The entire setup of this story bothered me. Because, as I said, I don't need more things about, oh, she's actually got, like, a heart of gold. And even if this is supposed to be where she started turning from the cold-blooded, arrogant assassin into a real human being, I don't care because we still haven't seen her be that. So if you wanted this to have the payoff that I believe was the goal, I needed to see more of her actually being not a good person. It's not a huge stretch to be like, I don't like slavery and I will set slaves free. I don't need more of Selena saving people and going, like, doing things that are not in her own best interest to put others before herself. I don't need more of that. She's done that the entire time I've been reading about this character. So the whole thing bothered me. It really just...
that's the core of her character.
That is the core of her character, right. But I already know that. I don't need you to keep hammering it into me.
Yeah, but she's not going to act a different way.
But they keep saying, like, she was at a time in her life.
Yeah, I don't remember them saying that she was a bad person. She was just a very good assassin. Like, a very good killer.
Yes.
So, she still does that.
But she's never... The implication is that she's never failed a job or done anything like this that was so, like, out of the way and out of the ordinary, and she would still kill people regardless of, you know, her own feelings about them. It's never been said that she didn't complete a contract. And so we're just supposed to believe that every single contract she wholeheartedly believed deserved to die?
No, I don't know. I don't think I'm understanding your point.
My point is, I don't need to hear that she's a good person anymore.
Well, what do you need to hear?
I want to see what she was like before she had this revelation, because it's being played as this is a huge revelation to her, that she's going to go against Arabin and she's going to put others before her own career and her own best interests. She's been doing that in the series too.
Yeah.
I don't need to see the origin story of how she started that because I've never seen her be anything else. So it's not interesting for me to see her character continue to do the same things she's always been doing, yet have it framed as if it's the first time. Because I've already...
Yeah, but if it is the first time, that's the story. We're getting the story of the first time.
Exactly, which is why I'm saying this isn't a story I'm interested in reading.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, it's just not a story I'm interested in reading. And it felt like they're trying to force more of the same thing down my throat. And again, I went in being like, prove to me that this needs to exist. And since this was the premise of the first story, I immediately kind of checked out. Because I was just like, this isn't the story I care to read. This isn't what I'm interested in personally reading. And maybe that's just me. Clearly that's not a problem you had. But to me, I was just like, I don't care. I already know this about the character. I don't need a few hundred pages to tell me, or, 10,000 words to tell me something I already know. A thing that actually I think is a legitimate problem is that in the series, and maybe I took this wrong, but in the series, the implication was that her relationship with Sam was like they were childhood sweethearts, they were each other's first loves, and it was this huge, passionate thing. And yet, at the beginning of this story, which again, was only 4 months before, maybe even 3 months before he was killed, it turns out, yes, that they've been kind of raised around each other, but they hate each other, and they're enemies to lovers. And one, that only works because of the strange format they decided for this book, in which all of these novellas are in chronological order in a short period of time. If they had actually just decided to do, disparate stories, not exactly one right after the other, maybe it would have worked better, but I don't know. It delegitimized their relationship, the seriousness of their relationship to me. Because I knew where it was going to end, but in my mind, they had, been, star-crossed lovers for a very long time. And this, to me, spoiler for one of the future stories, it turns out they end up only being together for like a month or less before he dies.
But also, don't you think as like a late teen,
yes,
those are the most intensive and most passionate? So like, I've had relationships like that at that age where I was like, this is the thing, this is the biggest thing I've ever felt. And it being the first love too, even if it was a week or a month, to me, the first has way more weight than so many ones in the future.
Sure.
So to me, I was polar opposite. I absolutely loved how the Sam relationship. I just loved the character of Sam. I thought
I like Sam a lot too.
I was devastated because I knew going in. Obviously, going in if you read the second, going in Sam's fate, what his fate is, and I remember reading it and being like, how dare you make this guy awesome? How dare you make me fall in love with him? Yeah. Because I did. He was a wonderful character. I thought he was fantastic with Selena. I loved Selena. I loved their dynamic. I thought it was great. See, and I took it as like, yeah, it was a small amount of time, but in that time in your life,
burned brightly.
Yeah, and then, so to me, it was completely legitimate because it's exactly how you're going to feel about that first person you share that passion with, because that's how it's the first time. It's the only time. It's the biggest deal you've ever experienced in your whole life. And being in that situation, they did grow up together. They did know each other. But I don't think in the world in which Arabin created, there wasn't room for lovey-dovey family time. It was, and they kind of created that. They kind of stumbled into that themselves. That's how I read it.
Interesting.
Personally.
I will say, I think this is just because I'm a bit older. I think that I just, as an adult, as a 33-year-old man, am just like, oh God, okay.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no, I think I'm just a Scrooge.
You are not
just
a Scrooge.
Like an old curmudgeon.
No, because you are a very passionate person. When you love something and someone, you love them real quick and hard. So I'm surprised that you feel that way because, okay.
I'm going to cut that part.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Don't do it. This is the reality of our relationship. This is why people want to watch it. I'm surprised by that reaction too, because I feel like
my reaction on Sam.
Yeah, because I feel like you are one who we've talked about. You remember, we both remember those feelings of falling fast and hard.
I do. I think it's we do. I think it's just I really think it's literally just because in my head I built it up to be this thing, and then it turned out to not be this thing.
It wasn't what you imagined.
And I'm just like,
sure, okay.
Oh, well, that's disappointing. So maybe that's on me, but still, I found that to be a bit of an annoyance throughout the thing. But I did like the character of Sam, and I did think that Selena was really hard to like through a lot of this because she really treated him like crap.
She did, and I think that's also kind of the point, to watch her emotionally grow, because you get to watch her be just kind of a jerk all the time, and like an unprocessed emotional, what is she in this, 18, 19?
17, I think.
17, okay, so like emotional, dramatic, angsty teen. Sure. And so I do think that is part of it. I know a lot of people who don't like Selena at all. Like in the first, multiple people who have not been able to get through the beginning of the series because they didn't like her. Whereas I think I looked at it as like, and as I do a lot of the times when I read, of like, this is kind of a part of my shadow, this is a part of my past. So I'm reading it, yes, it annoys me, but I'm like, I remember being here, okay, cool. Sure. At least like the emotional part of the journey, not necessarily being an assassin. Never been an assassin.
Don't lie to it.
But I think that is kind of purposeful in this, of like, making her a little bit unlikable so that you can watch her grow, because there's reality to that. Not everybody is sunshine and daisies 24/7 their whole life. True. And that's why I like to read, because I like to see the reality, I like to process.
So the next one is The Assassin and the Healer. This was my favorite of the book, largely because I think it was the shortest. But I also really liked Irene. I was nowhere close.
We love Irene.
I really liked Irene. She better come back, because I will be super bummed if she doesn't. I liked her a lot. And I also wish that they had just like,
Their dynamic is
really good. I really liked her. I really want to see like where her character goes, especially with her background as well. Like she had wild magic, fey magic. I don't remember what they call it in this. And then it went away, and she was a healer, and now she's going to. I liked everything about her. I'm really looking forward to seeing her again, and I assume. Really, the only thing I have to say about this one is I wish that they had just ended it on her leaving, like the hopefulness of her leaving the inn, the pig or whatever they called it, instead of like then going to another chapter of Selena or a section of a chapter or a few pages of Selena, like getting on a boat and leaving. I didn't care about that.
Sure,
I didn't care about that then. I was like, this
on.
is about Irene. I want to, like, and I thought it would have been such a nice button. I forget exactly what the language was when she left, but like, she took her stuff and she walked out, and I was like, "That's a beautiful ending. That's it. Close it."
Taking the power back.
And then there was a few pages more, or at least on my Kindle, there were a few pages more of Selena, and I was like, "Oh God!" I just thought it was a sloppier ending.
Sure.
Which again, the prose, I don't know. There were certain things that I was like, I felt that they were trying too hard in the language to make things happen so fast. Like, unfortunately, to go back to the first one for just a second, the things that Selena said for some reason to Rolf and Sam got them mad so fast. And I was like, I understand that for plot reasons, stuff needs to happen, but it felt kind of crazy. But then at the same time, in this second story, I was like, oh, we could tighten this up just a little bit, and it would have been a really nice button. So it felt kind of
Well, I do think you're still in early Sarah J. Maas as well.
Sure, for sure.
So you're getting her, like, before she was really, really established herself as a writer, and I think that's, all valid things.
This is also where I started noticing, or wait, maybe it was the next one. So let's segue into the next one, The Assassin in the Desert. This was my second favorite because it was...
I thought you would like this
Side
one.
Quest, the short story. Holy crap, there are so many side quest things in this.
It really is.
There's like, let's steal the horse. Here's your new companion with a tragic backstory. And also, here's this like spider silk thing. I bet this trader will never come back again. Yeah, I do. I like it.
No, I feel the same. Every time I'm like, okay,
that's part of why I liked it. I was like, I want to hear about these spiders. These spiders that'll take like 20 years. That's cool. So I hope that she goes and visits the spiders.
What's
that's
the name
fun.
of... Those are the Silent Assassins,
The Silent,
right?
Yeah, I like the Mute Master. That was very fun.
I figured you would. I was like, this is a Robby vibe.
Yeah, so this was my second favorite. I thought it was longer than it needed to be. Yeah. I'm interested to see how Ansel comes back into play. I liked her. And I liked her tragic backstory, as you gotta have. Yeah, I thought she was a fun foil friend, companion to Selena. I liked that. I thought it was good.
And then she flips.
Yes.
But I don't know, I like seeing a character like that. I like seeing a woman take charge and I know a lot of times it's like, I feel like this happens a lot in fantasy, I guess maybe in real life too. So I personally always love a very well thought out female villain that's like kind of not a villain.
Sure.
Like, to me, Daisy Buchanan is one of the OGs. Not to call her a villain, but she's manipulative and she uses what she needs to use as a woman to get done what needs to get done. Whereas a lot of times, as a woman, there are judgments and there are certain ideas made about what women can do, how they use their womanly ways and things. And I love when I see a character, a woman in general, just take that to use that as their advantage, and I feel like Ansel was that.
Yeah,
she was very much of like, gotta do what I gotta do. Sorry, guys.
I liked her. I also, specifically in this one, I remember writing down in my notes, I liked that we got more backstory on the witches. I think that the whole thing with like the Iron-Tooth witches and the other witches, whose names I am forgetting right now, are super interesting. I like it, and I like hearing more about it. That's some of the world building that I really enjoy. So getting a little more background on that from someone who's a little bit closer to it and has firsthand experience, I thought was a lot of fun. Also, it was a cool nod to like Selena's going to run into one of these witches eventually and kill them. Yeah, so this was my second favorite. I think it could have been a bit shorter, but there were things in it that I was like, oh, this is fun. And I mean, I got to assume that this is going to become relevant later, and some of it did immediately, like the tiny little square of spider silk. But I'm assuming some of that's going to come back to be relevant again in the larger series as well. So that's something that I'm excited about. So the next one, The Assassin and the Underworld. This one I didn't really enjoy that much. This is also, this or the last one is where I started realizing and slightly getting annoyed by why are we having to spend multiple paragraphs and pages in each one of these to rehash what happened in the last ones if this is all in one collection. Maybe these were released separately originally.
Think they were released
so that might be on me. But like, it was just like, oh, okay, yes, I literally just read this. I know. And that also brings up a problem that I think a lot of prequels run into, where all of the things she was thinking about, like there's a line I think in this one where she's like, I'm Adderlin's assassin, I did XYZ, I can't go to bed yet, and XYZ was exclusively things she had done in this book. And I was like, well, none of that is how you became Adderlin's assassin. It was all about like, I freed slaves from the pirate lord and all this stuff. And I was just like, it was the same problem that like Solo had the movie, where like everything Han Solo did apparently happened within like a
yeah,
year.
sure.
That made him an interesting character. And a lot of the things that apparently Selena did that made her that like are about her history happened in the span of about 3 to 4 months, it turns out. And so that is just kind of okay. I gotta be honest, this one didn't make that much of an impact on me. By this point, I was mostly just being like, just power through.
Yeah.
Get to the other side. I mean, her relationship with Arabin is such that it's very obvious that, I mean, she's been abused and manipulated by him, but it's very obvious that, like, you just gotta leave. Like, you just gotta leave. And she doesn't. And that's the interesting thing with which I guess we'll also just jump right into the next one, because I honestly don't have that much to say about the Assassin of the Underworld. Yeah. The Assassin of the Empire, the last one, where Sam does die. It's very sad.
Oh, and I cried.
Yeah. I can't tell if Sarah J. Maas is, and you know, this was still early days, so I really have no idea or way of knowing, but there are certain things she writes that I'm like, this is a very interesting and nuanced look at abuse, with like certain scenes with Arabin. I think like especially the one where he came to her apartment after she had actually left the keep and was living at the apartment with Sam. Like, there are certain bits where I'm like, this is actually a relatively nuanced look at abuse and manipulation and how it works in relationships like this. But I don't trust that that's not just kind of, that was on purpose. That it's not just kind of something that was an accidental byproduct of her trying to write the character in a certain way, because then she turns around and does things like shoves the fact that it is very obviously Arabin that betrayed her in our face to make sure that we know. So there are certain things that happen that I'm like, wow, I respect that you're not beating us over the head with this look at abuse and manipulation, but at the same time, then you beat us over the head with clues for something else that is already pretty obvious. So I'm not sure if she's respecting the reader's intelligence and then not, or if some things that I think are very good and nuanced are kind of just by coincidence and I'm reading into them more than I should be, or the author just kind of got lucky.
To me, I see what you're saying, but I think I'm reading it as a woman.
Sure.
And so I have a very different experience with,
of course,
men like Arabin in my life, and obviously like that is a very extreme. So I think anytime I'm seeing those like manipulative, emotionally abusive plays on that kind of a relationship, I'm looking at it probably as Sarah J. Maas is as well, from the guise of being a woman, like under the...
Okay.
I think that's kind of how I took it, of like, yeah, gross. This kind of like, like this is just around, like, I don't think it's obviously supposed to make me feel a certain way about this man, and it did very much. And I think that is an experience, not to that extreme or anyways, but like in day-to-day life of being a female, you've probably experienced, at least on a low-key level, some relationships like that, some interactions like that. And so I kind of look at it, that's all I really took from it, was like, no, okay. Like, ew, no, he's gotta go. But yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, the bottom line is it doesn't matter. Like, everyone takes something different from it, and regardless of whether or not it was a purposeful, nuanced look at abuse and manipulation from a male who has groomed a younger female, that's what it read like to me, so who cares if that was what the author's intent was. I thought it was well done. I don't have a ton to say about this one either. Again, by these last two, I was really just trying to get out. I think that Sam's death was tragic. I liked Sam. I thought that Sam was written very well. I thought that if the point was to make Selena kind of the worst for for at least like the first third of these stories, then well done. Selena really treated him like crap and made a bunch of really bad decisions and grew from them, obviously. Again, overall, I don't know that this needed to be written. I'm interested to see how my opinion changes based on like when these side characters come back and how they come back. If I feel like they needed the extra character development of a novella about them, or if they could have just been introduced in whatever book they were in, and that would have been fine too. The only one that I know I really enjoyed and was like, this is 100% great, is The Assassin and the Healer, because Irene rocks. And
she does rock.
Yeah. And The Assassin in the Desert, I thought was okay.
Tolerated.
I tolerated. Otherwise, I could have done without the other three, which is not a great batting average for this. So I guess we should do a rating. What should we rate this out of? I have actually nothing. I liked the desert one with all the side quests, so we could do like spiders.
Yeah, do spiders.
Great, okay. It's a weird choice
spiders,
for this, but
I suppose. Sure, why not?
I don't know. It's our channel.
Silk?
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, it's true. Spiders.
I was going to say spider silk, but that's just like a white
silk. Yeah, sure. Okay, so rating out of 5 spiders.
I'm going to give this a 2.5 out of 5 spiders. This, interestingly enough, as opposed to the last video we did,
that you gave it 2.
I gave it 2. If we had done this video the second I had finished this book, I would have given it a 2. I have since softened my criticisms of it, if you can believe it, after watching this video. So I'm going to give it a 2.5 because I did like at least 1.5 of the stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's 2.5, and I think if anything is going to really change, if any of my opinions on any of the books are really going to change once I finish the series, I think this is the one that might go up a lot. But again, I also had a lot of problems with structure and prose and pacing, so I don't know that it will actually go up a ton, but it could, maybe. Who knows? And what about you? What would you give this?
I would give this a 3.
Okay.
It is hard, again, similarly, having, like I had said in the past with rating these, like, having read the whole series, because I think originally had I read it, like, I think I probably would have given it a 3, but now looking at it back, that might be a little bit different, but it's because it is prequel, so you have a lot that builds upon these stories later on, or potential for a lot to build on these stories later on, so I think this is a hard one to rate, but I would have given it a 3.
Cool.
Not a big short story fan either.
Yeah. Alright, well thank you all so much for watching. Let us know in the comments, do you like short stories? Do you like novellas? Do you think that this was worth reading?
Are you so excited for Robby to read the rest?
When did you read this during the during your read of this series? Let us know down below if you read this first or if you read this when I did after the second book. I'm curious to see...
And would you have changed it?
Yeah, and what your opinion is after you read it. I'm curious to see how people feel and think about that. Yeah, so...
Okay.
Please like and subscribe if you want to see more of our videos.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on our next adventure.